And hello again, and here we are back in my garage, another day, another cup of tea, and today we're going to concentrate on finishing off the wiring on the bike, and in particular on wiring up the M-unit that's on the bike. And as I mentioned in the last video about wiring the bike, the M-unit here is the sort of brain of the wiring harness. It's made by a German company called Moto Gadget, and I must say it's a clever bit of kit. Now, I always go for the simpler version of two. This was called the basic version, and the more complex one's called the blue version, because it includes Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity to your phone and so on, which I don't really need. How it works is you've got these two rows of connections here, and you get the wires going into each one of the holes, both sides. You've got the side for the inputs and the side for the outputs. Next to each hole you get these little orange buttons. Now what happens is you press that button in and it opens up a clamp inside the hole, which then allows you to put the wire in, let go of the button, and it clamps the wire nice and securely. Now one problem I found with the M-unit is these holes are quite small, so you can't get sort of 5 or 6 different wires all crammed into the same hole. Which is a shame, because there are a few options here where I do need 4 or 5 wires crammed into the same hole. In particular, one of these options is the 12 volt ignition option. So when you turn the ignition key on, that sends 12 volt power wherever you want it to go. Now in my case, I've got at least four wires here, which all need to go into that same hole, and that's a problem because they won't all fit. Now there are auxiliary holes you can use, auxiliary ports, which perhaps I can use instead. But to use those auxiliary ports means programming that particular port to do what you want, and because I just have the basic version, that's a bit tricky. It's not tricky, it's just really fiddly. You do it via little LEDs which are attached to each hole, and then use one of the switches on the handlebar to control the options. It's a bit like sort of binary logic, sort of binary code if you like. So I prefer not to do it that way. So what I do instead is I can combine 2 or 3 of these into one connector, and then in turn go from that connector to the appropriate port. Yeah, so it's not ideal, but it works for me. So anyway, I've now got all these different wires to connect up as neatly as I can in this quite small area, and so that's what's next. And now I'm just about to plug in the high beam and low beam circuits into the M-unit. But I'm not sure which one's which, so I've plugged in my little test battery here, and now I'm going to check it to see which one's which. So here goes. Here's one of them. That's that one. So the one's here. Let's check again. Okay, yeah. So for me, the white one is low beam and the orange wire is the high beam. And now of course I also know that the damn light works okay, so that's good. So I'm just going to plug these into the M-unit and then we can move on. Now I've removed the GPS sensor because it's just in the way. I have to move that somewhere and maybe do that another day. Yeah, the big problem I've got right now is that I've got 5 wires all trying to go into the same port, and that port is, as I mentioned before, the key port is the 12 volt ignition, so it drives pretty much everything when the key's turned and you know everything comes on, and they don't all fit obviously. So what I've done in the past is I've used something like this. Now what this is a sort of bus bar. It's called a bus bar, and you can actually connect, on this case you've got 8 connections, but this is one with 4 separate groups. They're not all linked together. What I want is just one of these things, so I can take 4 or 5 of the wires on one side and then take one wire back to the M-unit. Haven't got one, so I've got to order it, and when it arrives we'll sort that out, so I can't do that quite yet. And finally, one more part that I've not got yet, but it's on order. It's one of these things, and this is the ignition barrel and of course the keys. Of course I've got this one, but this is from an old Ducati, so I don't want to use that one. And that's on order now. It's late coming, so God knows when it'll be here. But what's interesting about the ignition key is I'm not quite sure yet where it's going to go. I don't want to put it up by the Speedo Tacho in a normal place, because it'll break up the lines of the bike, and also the wiring's then exposed and easy to get at if someone wants to steal it. And it also means of course running 3 thick wires from the front of the bike all the way back to the centre of the bike again. So I've got an idea. It may not work, but we'll see. And that idea is that on the side panel here, there's normally a key hole because the key goes in to release the latch for the saddle. My saddle's bolted down, my seat's bolted down, so this particular hole in the side panel is now redundant. So I'm just wondering if I could manage to fit something like this in that same hole. So the key, so the ignition key will be down here. Not sure it's going to work yet because maybe the key will scratch the paintwork, not sure. Maybe it'll be in the way of your thigh. I've got to try it out, So that's an idea, which, as I say, I'm waiting for the barrel to arrive. But anyway, we'll carry on in a few days' time when those parts have arrived, and hopefully we'll get the damn thing all lit up and maybe even turning over. And now here we are, it's the next day, and my ignition barrel has finally turned up. And this actually is from the Harley aftermarket. I do like these, they're pretty well made, very solid, and the keys are sort of barrel ones, they're round, so it makes it more difficult to hotwire, hopefully. Anyway, now I've got it, I can try my idea out and see whether this thing will work inside the side panel. And sadly, it just won't fit. I'm about 5mm out because the back of the barrel here now hits the electrics box behind it. It just won't allow it to go any further. Shame, really. Now I do have an answer to that. All I've got to do is take it off very carefully. I don't want to disturb any of the wiring that I've so painfully put on. Come on, yeah, there you go. What I could do is try and mark out on here where it's hitting and then drill a big hole to allow this thing to fit through, but it's quite a big hole actually. Not sure how easy that will be. I do not want to take all this off the bike and just to drill a hole in it, so that might be something I can do. Perhaps I'm not sure how to do that. Yeah, I'm sure there's a way, but I just don't want to risk disturbing all this work I've done so far. But no doubt we'll come up with an answer. The alternative is, of course, I find a new home for this thing. So let me just take it off here. I wonder where else it could go. I do like putting my ignition barrels in odd places. It means that any future thief will have to look very carefully to find it. Yeah, so I'll keep looking, I'm sure I'll find somewhere and come back when I do. And now, even though I've not quite finished all the wiring, I can at least do some tests on the M-unit. So what I've done is I've connected up the live supply to my battery, and this is the earth. So if I now connect them together, hopefully the M-unit will come alive. Yeah, it does. You can't see what I can see, so let me bring the camera around and you can see what's going on. Okay, it lights up, it's a little thing. Okay, now you see here I've got 1, 2, 3 lights that are on. That's because those circuits are now live, they'll work if I use the switches and so on. The rest aren't done yet. And so now with those 2 circuits active, according to my diagram, those 2 circuits are for the horn and the light, headlamp here, high beam, low beam and so on. But I've also just noticed that my instrument pod has just come on for the first time, it's all lit up. Although I don't expect too much from this just yet because there's not much wired into it. I've not yet wired up the Speedo, of course, Speedo and the Tacho, not yet wired up the neutral light, not got one yet, and also the oil pressure light. It's in there, but I've not got a special connector for it just yet. I think the one thing I have got is actually the high beam lights. That might come on. So according to my diagram, I've got the horn and the light working. So let's have a look. Now the way I do this is actually when I wire up the switches is the most common things I use are on the left hand side and the least common are on the right hand side. So on here I've got left hand indicator, right hand indicator, headlamp. On this side I've got starter motor, horn and kill switch. So the horn's the middle one. Let's see if this works. Oh, I hope it does. Yeah, it does. And in fact, when I press that button, the lights come on to tell me the circuit's active. So that's pretty good. So on this side then, I've got the high beam, low beam. So here we go. If I press that button, yeah, it comes on. That's great. Press it again. Yeah, great. I've got the high beam. And in fact, the high beam lights now on the instrument panels. That's great. Press it again and go to low. Yeah. I keep it pressed in for 2 seconds and the lights go out. In fact, while I'm doing that, yeah, I can see the circuits are active. That's great. So press it for 2 seconds and it goes out. Brilliant. So that's a win. That's a big win. That. So I've now got a working horn, and working lights, and the instrument pod comes on, and I've got a idiot light for the main beams. That's something at least. So now what I've got to do is work out what to do about this problem with needing 5 wires going into one port, and it just doesn't work. So I have ordered an insulated post where I could bolt it on and then take 5 wires to that and then 1 wire to the M-unit. But the more I think about it, the more I think that maybe this little bus bar thing here that I showed you before, I might use that instead, because I've also got the same issue, although not quite as bad, for the indicators, because for example the indicators have now got 3 wires going into them and they don't fit very well. I've got the front indicator, rear indicator, that's 2 wires going to 1 port, but also another wire going from here to the idiot lights built into the instrument port, that's 3 wires. So yeah, I could maybe get them 3 wires on one of these things and take 1 wire off. It'll just make it look a lot neater. Yes, that might be something I might do. Anyway, let's get this all unplugged and we'll do some more work. And now I've rejigged the wiring around the output side of the M-unit on this side by fitting this bus bar. Now right now it looks like a right spaghetti junction because I've done it very quickly. But what matters right now is that it works, and once I know it all works, then I can clean it all up, make this a bit shorter, you know, get a bit tidier, make it all look a bit more respectable. And so now I've connected up the M-unit to my test battery. Here's the live, here's the earth, very delicate of course, and now I'm just going to do some testing of the M-unit itself and the various circuits that I've set up. And so first we tried the headlamp, high beam and low beam. Here goes, there's a low beam on, that's fine. Press again, high beam, yeah, keep it pressed in for 2 seconds and the light goes off, that's great. Next up is the left and right hand indicators here on this side. So here goes, yeah, that's working, it's flashing, I think you can see that. Press again to stop, again, yeah, that's great. And now last but by no means least, I can check out and test the indicators. So here goes, first of all we'll do the left hand side. Yeah, there is, it's flashing, and indeed as is the idiot light here built into the pod, that's great. Press again, it'll turn it off, yeah, that's great. Right hand side, yeah, that works fine. Again, I've got a telltale in the pod, that's great. Yeah, so pretty good with that. Now I haven't yet fitted the rear indicators because I'm still making the bracket to hold both the indicators and the rear lamp in place, but that's kind of in hand right now, it's actually doing quite well. Should have it done by tomorrow. Yeah, so that's pretty good. The only issue I've got at the moment is, where's it gone, yes, this thing, this is the £70 worth of GPS Speedo sensor. I had it fitted down here, but it was in the way, it's had to go. I've been trying to work out where it goes, but the more I look at it, the more I think, oh, I'm not sure about this, because when I cut the cable down, it used to be 4 foot long, what I found inside was a strange sort of unsheathed wire which went all the way along the cable. There's no reference to it in the instructions, so I've no idea what it does, but I'm just a bit worried it might perhaps be the aerial that this thing uses to work. Don't know, I can't find any information about it. But if it is the aerial, then I've come along and cut down a 4 foot length down to like this much, so it might not work, I don't know. That might just be me being a bit paranoid. But the more I look at it, I think, oh, perhaps I should go back to what I know and fit a front wheel sensor. I actually got one somewhere. I've got 2 or 3 of them because I didn't fit them last time I did a build. So I can fit that, no problem. And the way it works is you get a little sensor that you bolt to the underside of your fork leg. You also have a magnet that you glue onto the disc, and as the wheel turns round, the sensor sees it, senses it, and sends a signal to the instrument pod. Only issue with that is I can't really fit it until I've got the brakes in place, the brake lines, because the wire from the sensor up to the pod, I always follow the brake line, makes it as neat as possible, and just follow it so you can't really see it. So yeah, I can't do that quite yet, so I might just bin that idea and put it back on the shelf and use it perhaps another day. I'm talking about a completely different subject now, but brakes and also the clutch. Obviously I've not got the clutch and master cylinders yet, the brake and master cylinders yet, so just ordered a pair, very expensive pair by the way, and no, they're not Brembos, they're actually British made. Never seen them before, but I've read lots about them and they've got good reviews, so they should be here in a week or 2, and I can't wait to try them out on the bike. Anyway, it's getting quite late now, so I think we'll finish for the day. But we'll carry on in a day or 2 when hopefully I'll get the appropriate connectors and sensors that I need to finish off the build.